All right, 100.1. It's our 100th taping session. So, yay for that. It's also Easter, and our director wanted me to be a Cholo Jesus.
Jew Jesus.
Cholo Jew Jesus. Well, I mean, no, Jesus was Jewish, so you don't need to add the Jew. So just Cholo Jesus. Though I'm 25 years older than Jesus ever made it to, so old Cholo Jew Jesus. All right, let's get on to the business at hand. What's the first topic? Mueller report, maybe? Yeah. I don't know. Okay.
Are you seated?
Yeah,
You're seated, right?
What? I'm seated.
You're seated, right?
Yep.
Are you filming?
Yep.
You shouldn't be filming. You're seated.
I know, but he wanted me to be Cholo Jew Jesus.
Right.
Cholo Jesus.
Hop up. I don't think people care about this stuff right now.
Lance,
We want it.
on the way over here, Rick was saying that you and Trump supporters are going to hang your head in shame in 10 years because history is going to show that Trump was a fuck up. What do you say about that?
I think that I think the opposite is true. I mean, when I was young, I was a Democrat like Rick is, and I didn't give Reagan any credit. I thought all the things about Reagan that Rick thinks about Trump, and it turns out that Reagan was a great president, pretty much universally acknowledged, and the Democrats were wrong and I was wrong.
Well, he was a very effective president. He ushered in the next 30 years of Republican politics. And he ended up people forget how pissed off he made half the country. And in retrospect, he's fairly beloved. But I mean, he's a frickin' movie star. And he had great hair. And he had a great craggy, handsome but now old face, and he was good at talking to people. Though he ushered in the era of distrust of government and trying to knock down government. But I remember being super disappointed in frickin' Bill Clinton because everything that went wrong under Reagan, Iran-Contra and other junk, it all bounced off of Reagan because he was folksy and he knew how to present himself to people, and so everybody would like him. And so Reagan never really got in a whole lot of trouble. Even in the last 2 years of his presidency were occupied with the Iran-Contra scandal, but really that has faded in memory, and we're left with a beloved dude.
You don't think Trump will have that same?
I don't think so. I knew one of the guys, one of the Marines who used to help guard him in his years after the presidency, when he was living in LA. And he had an office in the Nakatomi building from Die Hard, which is right next to the Fox lot. And for years after he was president, and when he was deeply in the throes of Alzheimer's, he would still get dressed in his presidential suit, and he would go sit in his office, which was done up like a muckety-muck's office, and he would go sit there, remembering less and less, but very happy to be president, which is kind of, sweet and sad at the same time. But I was pissed at Clinton because Clinton was supposed to be, you know, Slick Willie was supposed to be the Democratic version of Reagan. Super folksy, able to get away with everything. And Clinton just didn't get away with stuff. Every woman that, you know, where they'd come up to his hotel room and he'd be standing there probably in just a towel and, you know, his wiener would be out at some point. Every time that happened, he'd get sued. He didn't get away with jack shit. Though Reagan, to his benefit, said that Reagan claimed that he did all his fucking around during his Hollywood days. So that he didn't need to have affairs as president.
Did he say that?
He said something like that. He's, you know, so that he sowed his wild oats as a Hollywood actor. But I rather believe that probably he's, you know, people have different levels of horniness. I kind of think he was a guy who was never super duper horny. But I don't know. I mean, you don't hear a lot of stories about him, you know, working his way through all the Hollywood starlets of the 40s and 50s. And he called Nancy Reagan, his wife, mommy. So, you know, how horny can a guy who calls his wife mommy be?
Well, I mean, what I heard was that he loved his wife.
Yeah, but I mean, it helps if you're going to love your wife. It helps if you're not getting a hard-on constantly, you know, for other women. Which brings us to, we were going to talk about this at some point, might as well talk about it now. Carol and I are watching Fosse Verdon, which is this FX TV series about Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon.
Who's Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon? I know who Bob Fosse was. Who's
all right,
Gwen
he was a
Verdon?
famous choreographer, and he was famous not only for doing great stuff like Cabaret and all that jazz, Damn Yankees, Sweet Charity, but he's also famous for being like a 3-pack-a-day smoker, doing a lot of pills, and banging everybody. He cheated on every woman he was with.
Weren't you more on the chair?
Possibly.
Yeah,
you're
can
gonna
you
have
get
to,
more on the chair?
like this.
Yeah.
Okay. But he did a lot. So
All right. So he banged every woman he saw. Go ahead.
right. So he died early because he wrecked himself. He died at 60. But the deal is, that brings up the topic of when we were kids. I think when most males are kids or teens, at least in the era we grew up, we thought, or at least I thought, and I think I would assume that a lot of teen boys have the same kind of naive thought, that when I come into my own, when I get famous for whatever, or when I frickin', you know, just become a man, and then find a woman and marry the woman.
Can you twist your hips? Maybe you were on a different chair. Maybe you were on the wooden chair. Was this the chair?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I can't draw unless your body's twisted more that way.
Which way?
Your hips have to be more that way, and if the chair
This way,
won't
right?
do
This
it,
way?
maybe the chair isn't the right chair.
What other chair was
There was a wooden chair.
All right. Well, I can just move this one a little bit.
It may not be the right height, and I don't want it to fall off. Look, see, it's gonna
Yeah,
fall
I
off.
see. Yep.
Were you on this one?
Yeah, I was. I remember.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's take that off. Now let's go over this again. Just start the story again.
All right.
You're
The deal is,
young, and you think you're watching Bob Fosse.
no, I'm thinking. All right. So Bob Fosse frickin' banged everybody.
Okay.
And this leads to the idea that when you're a kid and horny and beating off every night, you think at some point in your life the beating off will end and be replaced with sexual intercourse in sufficient abundance. The beating off will be at most a very small aspect of your adult sex life. You know, you'll have a spouse, and she'll she'll have sex with you as much as you want, and she'll make you horny year after month after year, or you'll be a swinging bachelor and it'll just happen. You'll get laid all the time.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
I'm getting horny right now. We still need to do the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go on.
All right. But the deal is that that's just not the case at all. That the percentage of people of guys who get laid more than they beat off has to be under 5%. Right? Most guys are not in a relationship where they get as much sex as they want with somebody who makes them horny, for years on end. And so for guys whose libidos remain, reasonably high, they're still going to be beating off. And part of my thesis is that it's guys who can't reconcile themselves to that who get in trouble, who are like Fosse, or like Bill Clinton, who are like, I deserve to jizz with other people involved. I'm Bill Clinton. I'm the most powerful person in the world. I'm president, and I should give myself the gift of jizzing with this 22-year-old intern. And a more reasonable point of view is, well, that in most cases, guys' libidos aren't evenly matched with whatever partner or set of partners they might have, and you're still going to have to beat off. And people like frickin' Harvey Weinstein, Louis C.K., all the classic Me Too sexual harassers, attackers of our era, a lot of them are guys who somehow think that it's part of the big swinging dick lifestyle that they should be able to jizz with other people, that they're better or more important than somebody who just has to go off by himself and beat off. So that's my thesis.
Rick, what is your conclusion with this thesis? I mean, what is it you're trying to say?
That
it's a little unclear to me.
All right, that a grown-up, reasonable man,
yes,
will eventually reach the conclusion that beating off is still going to be part of his adult life. Some guys, their libido slacks off at the same rate that their partners does. And I read a lot of advice columns, and there are every couple's different, every person is different, and in some cases it's the woman who writes in and says, I can't get my husband to have sex anymore, his libido is gone. But statistically, guys are going to want to have sex more than their partner, their female partner.
Is libido, would you say it's environmental, maybe they're not happy with their spouse, or is it a physiological thing?
It's physiological. For one thing, there's a lot of, back in the old days when humans first evolved out on the savannah, people started having sex, as soon as they hit puberty, 13, 14. And then, a lot of humans were dead by 30 because they're frickin', I don't know if they're even wearing skins yet. They're running around the frickin' savannah. Maybe living in caves or bedding down in frickin' badly improvised, coverings of big leaves. I don't know, but you've got to get to sexing. If your average lifespan for a human out on the savannah 100,000 years ago is 30 years before you die of rotting teeth or frickin', some mishap while hunting or eating, I don't know.
Rick, I'm going to give you a little break here.
Okay.
Without moving your left arm, can you lower your right arm just to relax it?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So
Just lower your right arm. You can put it down.
Okay. All right. So I just think that,
Now move forward though. You changed your no. Away from me. Away from me. That's it.
All right. I just think, in prehistoric times, you had to get to fucking really early, soon.
You know what? This changes too much of the pose. Get back in the pose for a second, and then lower your arm without changing the pose.
Okay.
Get back, raise the arm up again, and kind of lean forward a little bit. That's it. Now lower the arm without changing. Perfect. Very good.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
so that now we live to 70, 80, 90 years old, and that's many more decades of...
You can relax your head. You can point it any way you want.
Okay, well, all right, it's still like this.
Okay. So you had to get to having sex early because people died early, and then what?
And then you're dead, so it doesn't matter what happens with your frickin' libido, because you're dead. But now we live, on average, nearly 50 years longer than people did out on the savannah, I would guess. I don't know death rates on the savannah, but and so guys have to, and women have to contend with their libidos for another half century, and
raise your head up a little bit.
Okay, so guys have, compared to the guy who's dead at 28 on the savannah, taken down by a mountain lion, or falling into a gorge, or freezing to death. The guy who's...
or the guy that's like carried away by a pterodactyl and then dropped in a volcano.
Sure.
People always forget about that guy.
Yeah. Tough luck for that guy. But that guy, that guy may have only jizzed, the guy who gets taken away by the pterodactyl, he may have only jizzed like 200 times in his whole life.
Trump would hate that guy.
Yeah.
Got caught.
But then the guy, there's the guy now.
He was a loser.
Yeah, I like guys who aren't dropped into a volcano. But a guy who's like 63 years old, who has had a reasonably active sex life and still has a decent libido, that guy has been jizzing for frickin' 46 years at least.
You got to remember, there are people listening to this right now.
Yeah, all right, but like,
so
the guy who gets
have a point.
The point is that.
Am I missing something?
No, the point is that like a grown-up, mature man will reconcile himself to beating off. Like the 63-year-old guy who's been having orgasms since he was 16. He started late. Or say he started at 13. He's been having orgasms since he was, for 50 years. And say every other day on average. That's 9,000 orgasms compared to the guy who falls into the volcano at age 28, after out on the savannah. The guy has had more than 8,500 more orgasms than volcano guy, and so that means that.
I can't take it anymore, Rick.
All right. We could go on to something else, but anyway.
No, but I mean, look, okay. Are you telling people? Is this a roundabout way of telling people that you're just saying men should masturbate more instead of cheating on their wives? Is that your argument?
Basically, it's kind of an old school thing. Like when you look at the guys who have, most of the Me Too guys are pretty old. Harvey Weinstein is pushing 70. Cosby is over 80.
But they were doing all their nasty business while they were young.
Well, they were doing, like, Cosby did a lot of his shit in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
When
that was actually indistinguishable from everything else everyone was doing.
Kinda, but like Louis C.K. was more who's in his 50s, was doing his shit recently.
So I still don't understand.
So like it's old school to think that you're going to be able to. It's old school and kind of immature and unreasonable to think that most of your orgasms are going to come from sex with other people.
I got to be honest with you, Rick.
Yeah.
The times that I thought that my sex life was inadequate with the female I was with, can you get in the whole post?
Mm-hmm.
I just left the girl, or we broke up.
Yeah, but you're kind of the exception.
Can you? No, I think your hand's about right. That's okay. In other words, if your libido is dramatically different from the woman you're with, you have to sort of resolve that. I mean, maybe what works for me doesn't work for everyone else, but I just feel like one of the great things about sex before marriage, and you know, I've never been married, so maybe I'm all wet here. It's a way of saying maybe I'm talking out of turn. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that before you get married, it's the 21st century, and you get a chance to kick the tires a little bit.
Sure.
And that's when you sort of decide, is this person going to have an adequate sex drive for me? I mean, and if not, I wouldn't do it.
So yeah, but when you say adequate,
yeah, can you put your thumb down on that one?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got you with the thumb on the bottom, I think. No, I guess I didn't draw the thumb. Maybe I didn't draw the thumb. Put it back. Put it back.
Okay. So
and actually, okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
So when you say adequate,
yeah, in other words, it's sort of your mission as a man to sort of figure out, does this woman want more than I can give her in bed, or not enough? And then if there's a real problem, then you've got to figure out, well, can I live with that?
Yeah, but the odds that two people over time, because a lot of things can happen to libidos over the decades, can a long-term couple reconcile their differing sex drives?
Well, okay, I haven't been married for decades, but what I've found is that the libido doesn't change that much. In other words, if you are a guy that has a high sex drive, you're going to be a 60-year-old guy with a high sex drive.
Yeah.
And I've heard that women can have dramatic changes, but if she's the kind of gal that likes to hop in the sack every 5 minutes as soon as you're alone, she's not going to change that much. If she's always pushing you away when she's 25, she'll be pushing you away even more when she's 45.
The point I'm making, and I've said it a bunch now, is that as an adult male,
yeah,
you're probably going to be beating off throughout your life.
Well, you try to avoid that, Rick. I'm saying you try to find a partner where you don't have that as an issue, where
not
you're
everybody is
satisfied
not everybody. I think that's a relative rarity, under 10% of the population, and we're lucky to live in a time where there's plenty of stuff to jack off to.
Yeah, but we're going deep into your world, Rick, and I'm telling you that...
I'm just saying that most guys, most adult males, I would guess, and we can look it up, though I don't want to waste time on that. We should actually move on, because now we're just kind of puttering around.
No, I'm just saying, what's the point of getting married? I mean,
there are plenty of points to getting married, including sex, but the idea that marriage will entirely preclude ever having to jack yourself off is not a reasonable expectation.
Well, I haven't been married for 20 years, but I've never had a relationship where such a thing was called upon.
Well, I think you're exceptional.
All right. Okay. All right. Do we want to go anywhere deeper into this?
No, because we've already wasted.
All right. So we've got more important things to share with this audience.
Right, and I've already said jizz way too many times.
Okay.
So what? Let's go on to, I guess, Mueller and friends.
All right. Now you've got some very strong opinions about that.
Yeah, but I don't know if we want to do a total yell fest.
I promise I won't yell at you.
All right. So all right.
I'm a sensitive man. I'm interested in your opinion, and I want you to be honest with me. And I promise I'll treat you with fairness.
All right. I'll try to be reasonable.
And I'll try to listen.
All right. So.
And I'm going to give your opinion all the respect it deserves.
All right. So. The media that I normally listen to, and I listened to a little bit of Fox this week, and everybody seems to be in rough agreement that the redacted Mueller report, especially in contrast to Bill Barr's 4-page summary, has a lot of stuff that doesn't reflect on the president in a flattering way. And there you can disagree. The disagreements are in various places. And I don't know, if you're not Matt Gaetz, whatever, the Florida guy, and if you're not Devin Nunes, besides those guys, a lot of people, at the very least, say that the Mueller report has stuff that's embarrassing to the president.
Like what?
That he tried to obstruct justice, but that his staff was better versed in the law, and just he'd go around and he'd storm and he'd fume and he'd say fire this guy and do this and whatever. The number that, and I've looked at the things, but none of them stuck in my head, but the number of instances of attempted obstruction of justice, the number that popped up the most frequently was 10 instances listed in the report. And people argue about what's the legal significance, and does it mean that he should be impeached, But the general sense of things, including on Fox News, was that that Mueller report does not present Trump in the most flattering light. And of course, there are a whole range of opinions beyond that, but that's the general idea. But if you're going to disagree with me on that, then I guess that's where our disagreement will occur.
Okay. I disagree with you. I haven't read the Mueller report, but I listened to CNN a little bit because I knew this would happen. And I wanted to hear people saying what they were upset about. And my conclusion is that you've got a guy that was innocent. He knew he hadn't done anything wrong. And he also knew that he had the power to fire people that were on a witch hunt who were completely politically motivated. They had no interest in the truth. Their mission was just to get him somehow. And I don't think I've ever met a man or heard of a man that wouldn't want to fire the person that was trying to persecute him on trumped up charges. And it turns out that it was a witch hunt, that they knew early on he hadn't colluded with Russia. And I don't blame him one bit. And if he'd have fired him, I wouldn't blame him if he had. It's not obstruction of justice because the president has the right to fire people in the Justice Department. And I don't blame him one bit. So not only would it have been illegal, but it's understandable. In fact, as I said a minute ago, I don't know of a man that wouldn't have behaved like that. I've never met such a man. If you were accused of treason by a bunch of jackals...
All right, hold on. Let me semi-agree with you. You know, where I could say a lot of people wouldn't have behaved that way. But I would be saying that as a guy who sued a quiz show, a TV quiz show, over a bad question. So I really can't say that I wouldn't get all pissed off over what I perceived as a miscarriage of justice.
Thank you.
But on the other hand, fucking Trump, Jesus Christ, he's a big pouty baby storming around. And
Jesus total Christ.
There were the Mueller report notes 140. It says that there was no explicit agreement to collude with the Russian government, but it also lists 140 contacts between members of the Trump campaign and the Trump family and people who were representing Russia to some degree or other.
Rick, that is so spurious. I've known people that were representing Russia to some degree or another. All of us do. If you live in Washington and New York and you've got 100 people working for you, then it would be very easy for each one of those people, or at least half of them, to have a contact with somebody that had something to do with Russia. It's bullshit. It's unfair. It's rotten. And since you're in a fair mood, you need to agree with that. You need to face that because you're being fair. You're saying, you know, this is kind of ridiculous. And you know what? Whether you want to be fair, whether you want to be fair or not, that's the conclusion of the report. That nothing happened.
No, that's not the conclusion.
That is the conclusion. That is the conclusion.
That's the bar spin on it.
No. Nothing was actionable. Rick, we're living in the same universe here.
No.
Nothing was actionable.
No,
because what? Because Trump was indicted and he's now in prison?
No, because the report is framed with the understanding that a sitting president can't be indicted.
Nope. The report was written in the idea that whether he was sitting or not, that was a separate issue. In other words, he could argue constitutionally that you couldn't indict a sitting president, but it says specifically that these charges, whatever charge of obstruction was possible, was taking into account that it had nothing to do with the issue of whether you can indict a sitting president. That is mentioned specifically. And so they couldn't find anything, Rick. And by the way, how come an artist working in a studio in the middle of the ghetto knew 2 years ago that they weren't going to find anything?
Well, because
and you didn't. And Mueller and all the Democrats didn't know that.
No, because you're biased.
No.
The report is 448.
I waited for one of those pages to say, here's where Trump colluded with Russia, we're indicting him. And just as I predicted 2.5 years ago, there would not be a page like that. There isn't a page like that now. I was right. A guy that did not go to Harvard, I do not have a law degree, except that I'm not on a witch hunt to get the opposing candidate. But you are, and Mueller was.
Nah. So, regardless of whether you can indict a sitting president, and regardless of what you think of the report, it's now up to the Democrats in Congress to decide whether or not They want to impeach Trump.
Yeah. Really?
With impeached being...
How are they going to do that, Rick?
Well, because, as we've said a million times, impeachment is a two-part process. The House of Representatives...
I know. They don't own the Senate. They're not going to get 2/3 of the Senate.
Right.
So it's dead in the water, Rick.
So they have to decide whether it's more politically expedient. And yeah, it's a political...
Why don't they just do the right thing?
The right thing may be to
indict.
Hearings.
Why don't they just indict Trump for being a Russian spy? Why don't they do that, Rick? Why don't they do it tomorrow?
Why don't they hold hearings on...
You just want more circus. You don't want the circus to end.
Did you like the circus about Benghazi? Because they had, 17 Benghazi hearings?
Well, the problem with the Benghazi hearings
is that she was guilty, but
her.
Trump is not guilty of anything. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Okay.
Yeah, she got those 4 people killed. It was her fault. It was her fault every step of the way.
But none of the 17 hearings found her at fault.
Well, the problem is you can't...
Even though they were run by Republicans who dearly wanted to find her at fault.
Well, the problem, Rick, as I said to you earlier, is that what they found was that she fucked up. But there's no real law against fucking up and getting people killed. I mean, if you're a general in a war, you make a bad order, people get killed. That doesn't mean you go to prison. So the problem is there wasn't anything you could do about...
They didn't even find her particularly culpable.
No, she was culpable.
No, find me a result from the hearing that says that she was culpable to any degree.
Did that play a role in her losing the election, would you say?
Sure, because they had a gazillion hearings over a period of, 3 years? Sure.
Rick, we argued about this already. People want to hear something different.
All right,
if
fine.
you want, I'll summarize briefly my view on Benghazi.
No, fucking let's go on.
No, you brought it up. You brought it up, so now I have to comment. Rick, the reason I think she was culpable is that for 13 hours, those people fought to save their lives. And for 13 hours, they had on a loop sent to the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, save us, we're fighting for our lives. In 13 hours, she never sent anybody to rescue them. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me.
Find me the result of one of these hearings.
Don't interrupt me.
Find me the result of one of these hearings.
I'm not going to, Rick. I am telling you that they fought for 13 hours. And after 13 hours, you know who rescued them? The Libyan militia that didn't even know they were there. So they would all have been killed. The other 21 people, don't interrupt me. The other 21 people would have been killed. So she had more than 13 hours. She never sent help. I don't give a flying fuck what your committees say. I don't care.
They weren't my committees. They were committees run by Republicans.
I don't care if God came here.
So it's just your fucking opinion.
No, it's not my opinion. It's reality.
No, because it's some Dinesh D'Souza bullshit.
Rick, they fought for 13 hours.
17 hearings found no
I don't care. I don't care. Rick,
17 hearings run by Republicans who didn't want Hillary to win the presidency. 17 hearings, and they still couldn't fucking find culpability.
Okay, you want me to find culpability for you? I'll look it up.
All right,
because we always have to look everything up.
Okay, all right.
Wait, Rick.
But it has to come out of Congress.
Rick, I don't need it to. I'm not.
Yeah, you do, because they're the ones who had all the fucking hearings.
No, I don't. I don't need to, Rick. I guess I'm more intelligent than you, because I know that in 13 hours we could have sent planes to attack the Libyans, and Hillary Clinton did not. In fact, they would all have been killed. The other 21 people were not rescued by American forces. That's her fault.
17 hearings.
I don't care how many hearings.
All right. So show me the fucking deal.
They fought for 13 hours.
Show me the deal. They made a movie called 13.
They fought for 13 hours? Do you want me to show you that they fought for 13 hours?
I know
If they fought for 13 hours.
I know, but show me the deal that Hillary caused this.
I don't care. I don't care, Rick. I'm thinking. Understand this. I can estimate that if I could get on a plane and fly to London in 13 hours, then Hillary Clinton could have sent an airplane to strafe that area that was only 3 hours away. But she never did. Don't interrupt me. She never sent
I get to interrupt. It's part of the fucking show. So, but 17 fucking hearings by people who hated Hillary and they couldn't find culpability.
Rick,
so show me where...
Rick, I am not going to spend an hour on the internet trying to prove to you something I don't need to prove. I don't give a flying fuck what the hearings say. I'm not going to get out the internet. I'm not going to spend an hour trying to find the minutes from the meetings. I'm not going to find anything on YouTube. I'm not going to look up what each congressperson said. I'm not going to get a report and read it to you. We don't have time. We have 13 hours to save those people. She didn't send help.
Then some of the hearings would have found her culpable.
How do you know they didn't, Rick?
Because they didn't. Because I've seen the results of the hearing.
All right, you know what? It's 11:30 right now. We're going to stay here till 5 in the morning until I find somebody in Congress saying she was culpable. That's what we're going to do.
As a result,
I'm going to use the whole night on the internet, and I don't want either of you people to leave. We're going to stay right here.
Okay. All right, cut. Fucking cut.